Hi class, Mr. Patterson here with Bearded Debate. Today we're going to be talking about how to be a beast at the first negative rebuttal speech, or the 1NR. Here's the thing with this speech. It is in response to the second affirmative constructive for the most part. And that second affirmative constructive will be replying directly to your arguments in the first negative constructive. They might also extend some more advantages or advantage impacts. But for the most part, you're replying to them about arguments you already made in the round. Now, here's the thing about this. There are different philosophies as to what order the flow goes in according to the negative block. I typically teach the first negative to cover topicality, harms, inherency, justification. Now, most of the way people do this right now in debate, or maybe what the meta is around the idea of covering off case and then on case. So you'll cover topicality, disadvantage, and then plan attacks or advantage turns in the first negative constructive. And it's okay if you do that, if that's the way you want to do that, or how your team likes to do this, or maybe that's the way everybody's debating right now, so you can do that. I typically follow more of an older stock issues format and suggest you cover topicality, harms, and inherency. Those are the main ones you'd cover in the 1NC. So you'll be replying to those. But whatever it is, the whole idea or the entire goal of a 1NR speech is to answer their answers and extend. Because your second negative constructive just added more arguments to the round, to the block, and there's nothing for you to reply to relating to their arguments. So you're only covering arguments that you brought into the round. But with that, maybe in cross-examination, you might have more arguments to cover, and it's important to go ahead and address any of those critical cross-ex questions that were brought into the round that you feel like you really need to answer in the 1NR. But for the most part, answer their answers and extend. You may even extend your 2NC's disadvantage if you run the disadvantage in the second negative constructive. You could add more impacts to it. You could add another brink or internal link card to strengthen the argument if you think that it's going to be attacked. You can do those things if you have time, but for the most part, you're answering their answers and extending. Really, that's it for 1NR. That's the main goal. Topicality, here's the thing. Rather than just repeating the shell and saying what was already brought into the round and what has been discussed, you really need to focus on saying, look, the affirmative team replied in this way, or the affirmative team really hammered us on this, and here's our reply. That's probably the most important way to go about this. Don't just cover it all. And then, make sure you say the typical carry over our T-shell, or say carry over our standards, our voters, and the violation that we're arguing. But here's the definition and why we think our definition is better, or why we think the standard for the definition is better than their standard, and so on. Just whatever you're arguing, you can do that, but make sure you just carry over and then focus on replying to their reply. That's the main goal for that. Harms, inherency, same thing. They bring in a reply talking about why the harm still exists, or maybe they might agree that they're mitigated. That's not very often that they will. Most debaters try to say, I am completely 100% right in our harm stand for some reason. But most of the time, there's usually a truth in between. But your goal is to reply to their reply. Once again, harms. We claim this, the affirmative team claimed this. Here's our response on why our harms still stand in the round. Here's another card or another piece of evidence that suggests the same story that we're telling. Obviously, you can't make new arguments, but if you've already brought the argument in the round, you can extend with more evidence. Inherency, same way. Bring up the fact that the affirmative team replied in this way, but really wasn't a great reply, and here's why your evidence stands in the round, why this is already being solved for in society without using the federal government, whatever it might be. And that's pretty much the main point of this. If you want to extend the disadvantage, you can reply to any arguments made by the affirmative if it was ran in the first negative constructive. If not, you can just add more impact cards and say, look, Judge, my colleague brought up this disadvantage in the second negative constructive. there are more harm to this than what they brought up. Here's further impacts that address this issue. Say what the impact is, read the evidence supports it, explain why it matters, explain why it's such a big deal. You can extend brink cards the same way. But the main goal is you answer their answers and extend. That's the main goal of the 1NR. Yep. So have a good day.